Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and this video will showcase the lap times, top speeds and race tiers of all vehicles from the GTA 5 Money Fronts update, including day 1 and drip feed vehicles collected together. If you want to see all vehicles from all classes as well as more background on this testing as a whole, check the original testing videos in the playlist linked in the description, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on future testing of new vehicles added to GTA 5 and beyond. So to get straight into it, the new Bobcat Security Stockade is a different model but actually identical in every single way to the regular Stockade, just with a different livery, so I count that as a variation of the regular Stockade, which I've already tested in the commercial vehicles testing video. The custom flatbed on the other hand is a different model to the regular flatbed and shares exactly the same performance as the old flatbed, but because it has different functionality insofar as it can have 6 passengers as opposed to the 2 passengers for the regular flatbed, I do count it as a separate vehicle and test it again, which is why you see that here but not the new Stockade variant. And the third example of similar vehicles is the Smoke on the Water Pony, which is again identical to the regular pony just with a different livery like the Stockade. However, the difference here is that once you've unlocked this as part of the Tier 4 career challenge for this DLC, it can actually be upgraded but only in the facility workshop, and it joins a small list of other vehicles that can only be upgraded in very specific locations, like the Lifeguard and Mariachi Tornado in an MOC or Avenger, and therefore I do count it as a separate vehicle and test it again because it will go quicker than the regular pony that you can access in races from the lobby menu but you can't own. So the fully upgraded version of the pony jumps up to tier B for the Vans class alongside the Yuga Classic 4x4. Now when you fully upgrade this next car, you'll have a custom Walton L35 stock. Leaving comments about its name aside, this Walton is actually around 2 seconds per lap slower than the other Walton L35 and around 3 miles per hour faster for top speed, and sits into the H tier for off-roads with the Yosemite Rancher, Riata and Free Crawler. There is some body roll with this car even with the lower suspension to make it an interesting driving experience, but it's yet another pickup that would have done well to pad out the underutilized utility class rather than just being shoved into off-roads like most of the others. Next up is the Tampa GT, which now has a higher top speed than I mentioned in my day 1 video last week. It was a rough few days when I originally covered this and I hadn't applied the engine upgrade to the car, so my initial reporting was incorrect. Instead, while its lap time still isn't great due to its poor cornering ability, it is now only second to the Weevil Custom for non-HSW top speeds in the muscle class. As we continue with some of the slower cars from the DLC, let me inform you that this video serves as an update to the 2024 Supers, Sports, Muscle, Sport Classics, Sedans, SUVs, Vans, Off-Roads, Industrial, Tuners and HSW videos, and will sit above them in the testing playlist as we had new cars from each of those classes released from the Money Fronts DLC. This video will allow you to see where those new vehicles place within those classes when you watch those original 2024 videos. For example, you can compare the lap time, top speed, class position and tier of the Woodlander here with the vehicles from around the same area in the 2024 SUVs class testing video, which showcases all cars from the class except the new additions shown here and in other DLCs, which will all be at the top of the testing video playlist. DLCs always make things more complicated. But with that out of the way, let's get back to it with the Hardy, which it's not great for lap time as we've already seen. It is certainly a unique driving experience though, and it does take the top spot for both the Sedans class and the Tuners subclass when it comes to top speed. So you're not going to be able to use this for Sedan or Tuner races because it's just that, not great for lap time, but that top speed is, it can be an interesting choice depending on what you're doing. And naturally, because the regular Tampa was missing the engine upgrade, so was my initial testing for the HSW version, and that engine upgrade gives it an extra 11 miles per hour onto its top speed in comparison to what I mentioned last week, to make it the fastest car in the muscle class on that metric, and the third fastest top speed car overall behind the Banshee GTS and Stinger TT. 166 miles per hour is so fast. It still can't get around the corners, which is why it's in the B tier for the muscle class, but that just makes it an incredibly interesting car to drive like most of the cars in this DLC, even if it is now the slowest for lap time out of all HSW cars. And when you're talking about the cars in this DLC, I think a lot of them are interesting from a driving experience. Some of them necessarily not particularly, I don't find the Minimus particularly interesting, but it's clearly a GTA 6 traffic car. But at least we've got some good balance with it. The Minimus is putting itself into that tier S, the top tier of Sedan's class. but not destroying it by doing that. You know, it complements the sedans class by we was actually seeing some sort of balance with some of these cars, and I would say that we definitely have not had that for a while. It's nice that we're getting that. Same with the SUVs class. Sedans is balanced with about 6 or 7 cars at the top of the class, none of which are HSW. There still isn't an HSW car in the sedans class, and it's better for it. But then the SUVs class shows that you can have a balance between HSW and non-HSW cars at the top, because there's about 6 or 7 vehicles at the top of the SUVs class, one of them being the new Everon RS, which puts itself into 5th place and is in the top tier. The other one being the Woodlander, which we're about to see, that's also in the top tier, and that is an HSW car. There's a mix of about 3 HSW and 3 non-HSW cars all mixed together at the top of SUVs. So, you know, it shows that you can have a good balance between HSW and non-HSW cars, but it does also then bring into question that why are we making HSW cars of new vehicles anyway? Because you don't need the HSW upgrade to make it as fast as it is. We all know why. It's because it's the way to get more money out of people for buying new cars with the expensive hidden cost of the HSW upgrade. But yeah, I just wish they were on old cars instead. Now, the upshot of the LSCM Cheetah Classic is that it's on the top pace for non-HSW Sports Classics races alongside the Uranus Loz Speed, is a full second per lap slower than the newly renamed LSCM Jester RR, and therefore off the pace for tuner races, for which this car is usable, and ultimately feels like a slightly easier to drive and more planted Cheetah Classic, for which it's about 6/10ths quicker than. And just like the LSCM Jester, you can't do any other modifications to this car apart from removing the livery. I'll leave it up to you to decide whether it's worth your purchase or not with all of that in mind. When it comes to the police bike, I've glossed over it a little bit because I focused so much on its really good top speed, mainly because of the bug with the fact that it bounces on the floor with the wheelie, but its lap time is actually very, very close to the previous best in the emergency class of the Coquette D10 Pursuit. So if we were able to race these vehicles and there wasn't too much of a top speed section for the bike to, you know, wheelie and get that reach that top speed, it would actually be quite balanced at the top of the emergency class. But obviously, ultimately, we can't race with emergency vehicles anyway, unfortunately, so it doesn't really matter. And again, it's showing that sort of good balance. 2 DLCs ago, we had some really good balance with some of the cars that were added, and then the last DLC kind of ruined that a little bit with the Uranus Loz Speed destroying the non-HSW classics, and the LSCM Jester RR, the Jester RR widebody as it was called then, obliterating the absolute fantastic balance we had at the top of tuners at the time. But we're back now with some good balance again. You know, we've got new additions of cars that aren't ruining their classes, that haven't already been ruined at least, and they fit in nicely with pre-existing options, just giving us a new option to try at the top. That's how it should be, really. You know, every class these days just has sports car level lap times at the top, so it's a shame we haven't had this sort of balancing done from the beginning, when there was more of a distinction between, say, the lap time of an SUV and the lap time of a muscle car. But at least it's happening now, and honestly, it does make me happy to see that, you know. And it's also interesting that we've had some cars with interesting quirks. You know, it's nice to see that we've got some cars with character to them again, which again we didn't really get in the last DLC. The Tampa GT is obviously the standout for this with this one, but a lot of the others too are really interesting to drive and quite unique. If anything, it's these top sports and supercars that we're seeing here that are kind of the boring ones from this DLC, although even they feel somewhat unique. Probably the Suzume is the least interesting one of the whole lot, maybe apart from the custom flatbed. But yeah, even the 2 sports cars are quite different to each other, and it's again quite balanced with sort of that top tier of sports cars as well. So yeah, it's good to see that. We'll see some side-by-side comparisons here. I think the one I wanted to showcase is what is essentially now the top tier of sport classics. I think the previous top tier, I say the top tier, obviously taking out HSW cars, the top tier of sports classics is the 2 HSW sports classics that we have of the Turismo Classic and the Sterling GT, back when HSW was put on old vehicles. But yeah, that is the top tier, and then when HSW is disabled or you're not focusing on that, these are the two cars that are at the top of Sports Classics now. The regular Turismo Classic, the non-HSW version, the regular Cheetah Classic, and the Ardent, which used to make up the top tier. I think it's reasonable to put those into the B tier now, which is kind of crazy to say. And these two cars will make up the A tier because these two are just a cut above what the Turismo Classic, Cheetah Classic, and Ardent can do. But obviously they're nowhere near matching the top HSW cars, and they're so close. As you can see, that the side by sides of them, they're very close in terms of lap time. The Uranus definitely has the edge on grip, whereas the Cheetah Classic has a little bit of an edge on top speed, but ultimately they're very, very close in performance. So even though it's moved the game on in terms of the Turismo Classic isn't the top anymore, and it's ruined, the Uranus already ruined the balance with that, at least we've got the LSCM Cheetah Classic to battle against it. And here's a proper comparison now between the Tampa GT and the previous best top speed for the muscle class of the Vigero ZX. Just crazy top speed, that 166 miles per hour. Again, the Vigero ZX is still going to be right at the top of the class because it's there for lap time too. But yeah, a crazy top speed from the Tampa. And obviously this is the difference between a fully upgraded version of a vehicle and a non-fully upgraded version, a completely stock one. Otherwise, these two vehicles, these two vans are exactly the same. And that's everything for this video and this DLC as a whole. It was over very quickly in terms of the drip feed, which I'm happy about because I can forget about it now. But please consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support my work and get some extra perks for doing so, such as early access to videos and other testing results. And remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed it, found it helpful, and subscribe for more. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.